welcome back to The Outlet.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today on the show, we have Lolo Pooch, and she is living with OCD. How does it feel to have OCD?
Well, that's a very difficult question because sometimes I feel like this is my superpower, but other times I feel like I suffered with OCD and it ruined my life. So living with OCD has definitely shaped my perspective on many things.
How did you know that there was something different with you?
Basically, when I was younger, I always knew something was different about me. I have a twin brother, and I knew I stood out for him because I would just do odd things. For example, even at a very, very young age, I would just wash my hands, and I would wash them until they bled. Literally, I would have so many chapped marks on my hand that I would have to wear extra long sleeves so that I wouldn't bleed, and people would be like, oh my God, what's wrong with your hands? So I would just hold them underwater until I felt clean, and that could take up to maybe, I swear, 30 minutes, and I would just hold it under the water.
And did you think your hands were just dirty?
I thought it was dirty. I felt contaminated, and even though I would put soap on my hands, I would just re-wash them and wash them until in my mind, I felt like they were clean. So I had to feel like it was right, if that makes sense.
No, totally understand.
So basically, that was like one of the first red flags of OCD. And I would say it got worse when I start hitting middle school age.
Okay.
Basically, I would have to make everything even. So for example, if my twin brother hit me on the left side, I would have to hit him back on the right side.
No way.
Yeah, so it's really weird because no one understands. So people thought I was funny and I would hide my OCD. I was embarrassed because no one understood what I was doing. And at a young age, many kids, they don't understand. They probably thought I was just weird, But inside, I was like, I felt the need to do certain things. And if I didn't do it, my whole day was ruined. I would cry and want to be by myself.
Yeah.
So I basically knew something was wrong, or not wrong. I hate to say I suffered, but it was hard growing up with it because no one in my family knew what it was. And they just thought, honestly, they thought I was possessed.
And when you tried to explain this to them, what was their
They did not understand at all. At all. It came to a point, I swear to you, on a vacation with my family. It was so miserable because my OCD was just at its highest. I would do certain things. I remember one time my mom was like, do not leave the line. We were in line for a luau or something. Okay. She's like, do not leave the line, right? But I felt the need to go touch a lifeguard stand. I don't know why I felt the need to go touch it. And I knew it was wrong and I knew I would get in trouble. But my OCD was telling me, go touch it. So when my mom was not looking, I ran. I remember I was maybe 7. I ran, touched it, and ran back to the line. And she's like, why'd you do that?
Do you think it's because that she told you not to move is the reason you did this? Or was it just, what triggered you? What's your triggers?
It was a trigger. I don't know. It's very hard to describe what triggers me. Unfortunately, I think it relates to if I think something is dirty or contaminated, or if something I'm scared of. So for example, OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I was diagnosed with more obsessions of my OCD. So it was all in my mind.
Okay. So you believe it's an illness, or do you believe it's actually all in your mind? Could you actually change your outcome? Do you believe?
I don't think I could change it. I think I was born with OCD and it's hereditary and maybe environmental. There's different spectrums of what happens to someone with OCD. But I think I just need to learn to cope with it and deal with it. And once I conquer that, I could handle my obsessions and tell my OCD to stop. If I could control my OCD, I'll always be Lauren who has OCD, but I don't want to be defined as just OCD, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been really rough learning different ways. I was actually used in a study at UCLA when I was younger because I was a twin and my twin has no signs of OCD at all.
Okay.
And I was always a troubled child. So I remember I had to go to McDonald's and touch the ground of the toilet and all that. It was so dirty. They made me touch everything that I thought was dirty. And come on, a normal person would not put their hands on the bathroom floor of a McDonald's in downtown LA. That's like filthy, right?
Yeah.
So I had to do that because it will show me like, hey, you're not gonna die. But it was just really awful as someone with OCD. That was just a nightmare, you know?
Yeah. So
and I couldn't wash my hands. They were like, you cannot wash your hands. You're just gonna have to sit with the anxiety. And I remember sitting there and I was like, all right, this is ridiculous. Let me wash my hands. So they're like, no, you gotta see that you're not gonna die. You just have to sit there and feel it and live with it and move on.
So what did you actually feel?
I felt like I was like, I hate everyone. I don't want to be with anyone. It's like, this is stupid. You know what I mean? Like I felt dirty. I was like, oh my God, I have germs everywhere. They're all over me. If someone touched me, I would be spreading it. You know what I mean? Like I just felt like I was contaminated all over my body.
What about relationships? Like if you're in a relationship with somebody and they're really sloppy or they're not clean or they're slobs or, you know what I mean? How does that feel?
It's funny. I actually have never really been like, are you talking about like relationship with a boyfriend or
it can be
a partner?
Anything, friends, family.
Right. So, I mean,
guys.
That was rough as well. Like if someone like accidentally, like I swear to you, I hate feet. If someone steps on my pillow, I would throw the biggest fit. I would throw away the pillow. I would like cry about it. And my family would just be like, what the hell? She's crazy. I'm like, you don't understand. But it would just trigger me to the point where it's like, I don't want to see that pillow ever again because I know that your foot was on it. And I would just picture that every time I saw the pillow. So I would just throw it away. I was like, I'd rather just throw it away.
But like relationships. So let's say you're dating someone and
Right.
they're really sloppy.
I would be disgusted. I would probably not be able to date them if they were just dirty, which is like kind of sad. So yeah, it's harder for me to find a relationship because I'm really, really picky and little things will bother me. So I kind of just focus on myself.
So you can't focus like on anything else unless you get that accomplished.
Yes.
If your hands are dirty, you just completely shut down till you wash your hands.
Yes.
Like even if you have to go on an airplane or you have to take a test, you just shut down.
I shut down. And it got to the point where I had to go to therapy because no one understood. I wouldn't be able to enjoy anything. I would be miserable if like they forced me to like move on. I'm like, you didn't let me touch a certain thing a certain way. I would just like my whole day was literally ruined and the next day would be ruined. And the next day, unless I fixed it to where I felt satisfied.
Does your mom, does your dad, anyone in your family have OCD?
I think my mom may have like a bit of it because, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of people have a spectrum of OCD. Like, I will see people who are really organized with binders and they're like, oh, I have to have it a certain way. And I'm like, yeah, OCD. That's what they say. But in reality, I'm like, man, you don't know like the high spectrum of OCD where it's like it really affects your day of life. And like there's times where I just don't want to get out of bed, you know? I just want to
of course. No, I know
sleep. You know what I mean? I just rather be away from people and just deal with my thoughts and wait until I feel good enough to go out. Because I feel like I'm an actress like 24/7 when I'm with people.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand the suffering and it's all obsession. So no one knows what's going on, you know? So I just look like I'm fine, but in the inside, I have all this like anxiety.
Do you need to like sometimes like just leave the situation and like go home to like reset?
Yes, I've done that.
Like you just start sweating and overwhelm yourself and like, I gotta leave, guys.
Yes, I have. And then people think, oh, she's rude or something, but they just don't understand that it's something like internal. So I really feel for people who suffer from OCD because people just don't understand unless you lived it and dealt with it because you literally cannot control it no matter what. People are like, why don't you just stop? Like, just don't do it. I'm like, you don't understand. Like, if I don't do this, I feel like I want to die, which is like a little much, but like that's literally what I feel like. I'm like, oh my God, like I can't do anything until this is done. So it's kind of hard to live with.
When I was younger, I used to have really, really bad anxiety and OCD. I used to force myself. The older I got, I said, I have to force myself not to have this. Like I have to conquer my own self. I remember every time I go to bed, there has to be 2 pillows on this side, 2 pillows over there, and only 1 pillow behind my head. And if there was, a pillow missing, I couldn't sleep all night. Mm-hmm. And they have to be straight, and the remote has to be on the right-hand side, my cell phone on the left-hand side. And if my, the blanket's a little off, it's just, I couldn't sleep. So I would just purposely say, nope, I'm falling asleep tonight. And I kept doing it each
Right.
and every night. And after a while, I was just like, who cares?
Right.
Like, did I sleep? Yeah. Did anything change? No. It's just, why does my bed have to be perfect before I fall asleep? It was more of a comfort, more of I was missing out or lacking something in my life. So I believe that I took that into my own hands and try to manipulate my situation to try to feel more comfort in my life.
Right. Basically, that's kind of like a treatment plan for people with OCD. For example, I've been going to therapy for like 10 years now. I kind of just go because it helps me to talk to someone who kind of is there to be like, oh, we understand, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, that's exposure. They want people with OCD to be exposed to what makes them scared or like what triggers them. So like that's what you did with the whole like pillows and falling asleep. So like I know like people are like, why don't you try that? But it's harder for like other people. I would say it's really hard for me just because I'm all up in my mind. Like I've always been someone to have all these thoughts in my mind, and I don't tell anyone my thoughts because they're just insane. I hate to say it, like they are insane. Like no one will like understand, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, first I would start with the way you talk about it.
Right.
I won't be able to, if once you speak negative, it's already in your mind. So then that's going to be your outcome.
Well, I'm not trying to be like, I can't do this. Like I've become such a long way from what I used to be. I was just like miserable, but now I kind of use it to my advantage. So for example, I work in post-production.
Mm-hmm.
So my OCD comes very, very well into that because I just notice things that most people won't notice.
Yeah.
So it actually helps me in my career. So I'm going to use my OCD instead of like ruining my body and my relationships. I'll use it for my career to help me use that skill to conquer post-production. You know, I'll notice everything in the backgrounds, little like pixels that are like off on the screen. You know what I mean? Like people with OCD, they will notice that. Yeah. So I'm like, great. I'm found a great career. I'm going to use my OCD for its advantage. So I'm not going to say it's like a downer on my life, but it's honestly like I think OCD makes me who I am. So I learned a lot from it. It humbled me, and I don't want to say I suffered, but I just had to learn how to cope with it. And from that, I grew, and now I could use I think it's a skill set. I could use it for my advantage. So I think OCD is awesome now.
So how do you actually cope with it?
Okay, here's the thing. I know a lot of people are against medication, right?
Yeah.
I take medication, which is like, it helps reduce anxiety. So that helps me a lot. And I've tried taking myself off it, and medicine helps me. Like when I was off it, I went insane. I literally was hospitalized when I was not on my medicine. Which sounds, sorry, it just sounds so crazy, but like I literally ran so much that I had to be in a wheelchair because my knees gave out. This happened in Europe, actually. And
you were running.
I was running. Yeah. I ran so much without like proper training and stretching. I just had so much energy inside me, and I was trying to, I guess, escape my mind, that I ran so much until I was physically injured. And people were like, that's due to your OCD. Not people, but my doctor.
What was going on in your mind? Before you started running, like what did you say to yourself?
I just, I always try to like escape my mind. So I guess this is the bad way to deal with it. I would just go on runs because it was a way to relax me. I would listen to music and just run. But I ran so much, I would run like 7 to 10 miles a day without like stretching. I swear to you, I would just run like a strong, steady pace where it looked like I was on the track team in college, but I was not. And I was just like a girl just running because it felt good to me. It just felt like I was not, falling into my mind. So I would just run for hours and hours.
So what's the voice inside of your head saying? Is it just computing? Is it just coming up with trying to solve every situation? Are you trying to think about what's going to happen next week, tonight, tomorrow, school?
Yeah. I'm always one to think of everything. I think of the past, the present, and the future a lot. Like, what am I going to do? What's going to happen to me? I feel like people with OCD, they're very aware of what's happening, but people don't know like inside their mind that there's a lot going on. So I know sometimes I probably come off as awkward or weird, and I try to like act like I'm paying attention, but I'm just doing a whole nother thing in my mind. So people, it's hard to explain. So that's why I really feel sympathy towards people with OCD, because people don't understand. So I always wanted to help people with this problem, because it's a thing, and people should know like, hey, people suffer with this, but they're not different. They're actually very strong. They're strong people. Yeah.
Do you think that you have some fear?
What do you mean? Like fear of what?
Do you think you have some fear and you're scared of the future or what is going to happen tonight, tomorrow, instead of just going with the flow and just knowing that everything is going to work out in your favor?
I mean, I think, yes, I am scared of the future, but I think a lot of people are scared because they don't know what's going to happen. But people with OCD, they probably obsess over that thought. So they think of it as worse. You know, it comes off worse because they're obsessing over it. And so that's why I need to just relax. As long as I relax and find ways to cope with my anxiety, I think I'd be perfectly fine and my life will be good. I don't have to like feel depressed about living with a mental illness.
Have you ever tried meditation?
I've tried it. Yeah, I've done yoga. That helped. I've learned that what keeps me not as, aggressive and anxious is I like to go to the beach. I like to swim. I try to do just not heavy activity. I just need to relax and find what comforts me. I like to listen to music, so that helps. It's just insane how like people will judge you and they just don't understand what's going on. And my biggest problem is that I wish people would not judge you based on what's happening. Like they need to know your story. Yeah.
100%.
Exactly. So,
do you believe that drugs and therapy are good for your mental health?
I think it depends on the person. So like I said, when I was off my medication, I was against it. I was like, I'm not going to take a pill every day to help me. But when I went off it, that's when I started running like crazy, because I guess I didn't know how to deal with my anxiety. And I would run so much where, yes, I was in a wheelchair for a bit. And then secondly, I actually had physical problems where I would breathe so heavily if something triggered me. And people are like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. But I was so anxious. So once I went back onto the pills, I was fine. Eventually I want to like ease myself off, but I think it does help. I think anxiety medicine can help someone. And I think talking to a therapist is really helpful because they're there to listen. They're there to help you instead of trying to explain it to someone who has no idea that a mental illness is a very serious thing to happen.
So if someone was listening right now and they're suffering or they're going through the same thing you're going through, what would you like to tell them to help improve their well-being?
Hey, you're a strong person. Like nothing makes you inferior to others. In fact, I think you have a superpower and you just need to stay strong, learn what makes you feel like you could be in control, and just know that there's others who have it. You're not alone. Just stay strong and learn how to live with your OCD and what makes you feel good. That's it. Just live with it and learn how to use it as a skill set and not something to suffer with.
Most geniuses actually had OCD, like Einstein,
I know.
Tesla.
That's why I'm not saying I'm a genius, but I know very smart people who have OCD. In fact, I'm Italian. I go to Italy all the time. And
what part of Italy?
I go around. I'm just saying, when I was in Rome, I was just amazed by what I saw with the artwork. So for instance, Michelangelo is one of my favorite artists. He had OCD and he has made the most magnificent arts to me. I think he's a great artist, and I knew he had OCD because, come on, you have to do great detail to make such great art. So it's kind of interesting how some very smart people have it. So it's a skill. It really is.
He had a lot of passion with it as well,
Michelangelo?
Yeah.
I know. And I love him. I'm like, haha, he had OCD and look at him. He's like amazing. So I think it's a superpower, and you just have to learn what your craft is and use it for the good instead of using it against you. Use it for you and making good art or whatever you could bring to the world. It's a superpower.
So what is your superpower?
My superpower. I think my superpower is, I kid you not, I'm very good at connecting with people. And I think it's because OCD kind of just humbled me, and I'm really good at reading people's energy, or like I look at their facial expressions and I could tell like how they're feeling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm really good at connecting with strangers, and I could have a great conversation with them even though we just met, and they're like, wow, you really connected with me, and I feel like I've known you for a long time. And it's because I'm really good at minor detail. So I think that OCD has helped me in connecting with just complete strangers, and I love meeting people. So after this pandemic, I really want to go back to traveling.
Where's your next journey going to be?
Probably Europe. And here's the funny part. Like everyone is like all about hand sanitizer and masks. I'm like, finally, like this has been a blessing to me, because I was like, finally people are realizing all the germs that are out there. You know what I mean? So like this whole pandemic, the fact that now we can have hand sanitizer wherever you go, I'm like, oh, this is great.
Do you still wash your hands like that?
I don't wash my hands as much because I know, like, obviously, like, what I was doing was so excessive. But now I try to wash it like a normal person after the bathroom. Like, everyone, I think, should wash their hands, even though there's some people out there who don't, which is gross. I've seen it, and I've told them, hey, you should wash your hands. But yeah, I wash my hands, obviously, like, before I eat. Just, you know, like, normal washing. I don't do it for, like, minutes like I used to. I do it, like, 30 seconds. So, yeah.
I have a friend, and sometimes this becomes overwhelming for the person. It can definitely affect them and affect their lives, and even affect hanging out with them, because it's like, listen, I respect walking to your house. I take my shoes off. Sometimes it's just like you don't want to be around that person, because it's like, oh my God, you dropped this, you did this, and this, you know, you take your shoes off. Did you wash your hands? Sometimes it's like overwhelming for someone that doesn't understand what's going on in their mind. So yeah, here's the thing about that. So yes, people with OCD, they could come off as mean or rude, or like, oh God, they're so annoying because they're so picky, right? So I think depending on the person and where they're at with dealing with their OCD and their journey with OCD, then they could control their emotion towards others. So for example, there's so many things that will get me mad if someone like triggered me. But like I came to a point where thankfully now I could just control myself and say, oh, okay, that's not gonna kill me. You know what I mean? So I people think of me as quote unquote chill, because like I came to a point where it's like, all right, if it happens, it happens. Like that's part of life. So I think depending on someone's journey, they could control how they act towards others. Yeah. And I kind of like got to a point where I wanted to do comedy. I swear to God, I was gonna do stand up and just talk about OCD and be like that crazy character about OCD, because I think I could use it as like, hey, like I have to go open the blinds like 40 times until I feel like the sun is hitting my bed perfectly right. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like not normal, but I think about things like that, like, hey, the light is not hitting. I'm actually trying to think where this is all coming from, and not just with you. Like, where does this actually stem from? Let's think about, where does OCD stem from? That's the question. Like, why does OCD exist? You know, from beginning times, people were put in mental, like, insane asylums because they were different. People had to walk a certain way, and people were like, well, this person's insane. Put them in the, you know, lock them up. So I think it's just something that exists. And instead of looking at like the stigma of mental illness is like, she's ill, they could be like, dang, she's got a skill. She could do this while others can't do that. So like, that's why I wish the stigma, people need to realize, hey, this is a skill set and not an illness. And people with it could do great things if they learn how to control it. I don't know why, but it exists and people just need to know about it. That's it. So it's just there. It's a thing. My brother has Asperger's. So the same thing with him. He has crazy amount of OCD. Right. And he just doesn't feel, well, when he was younger, he didn't feel comfortable in his own skin. Like, it's just, he was way too powerful. His brain, his whole being was just, he couldn't fit in, he felt like. Right. And his OCD was just driving him crazy. You know, like, he would have to shut the door 6 times. He would have to walk upstairs, up and down the stairs, up and down, up and down. I'm laughing because I had to do that too. I had to walk through a doorway a certain amount of times until I felt like I walked into it correctly. So yeah, I mean, it honestly is kind of like a power, like I said. So like you feel superior sometimes, especially if you do manic behavior. So there was at a time where I felt like I was training for the Olympics. Like I said, I used to run a lot. So I would run like crazy fast and people are like, wow, she's amazing. But I'm like, oh, I'm no. Oh, you were actually training for the Olympics. I mean, in my mind, I felt like that, but I was not.
I was not training. But to others, they're like, wow, she's a crazy good athlete. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm just crazy on OCD. So I would just be running like super fast. I remember I would just work out in the gym and I would just be like going crazy like sets. And I never even trained for it. I would just be lifting and people were like, what's going on?
So your mind, you have a really powerful mind.
I talk about this all the time. The mind is so powerful.
So what happens if you changed it though?
You could do amazing things.
What happens? I'm saying, what happens if you switch the tables on your own mind and you became the master of your own mind, knowing that now you do not have OCD, now that nothing is going to happen, now that everything is okay. So think about it. If your brain and your mind is so powerful, you can probably change this whole thing around.
Right. Exactly. And that's the hardest part. So learning how to control your OCD. I swear to you, people who have it, they honestly could create or do amazing work.
And they're very focused on their job, their work, occupation.
And they do it quickly. And like if they focus,
ease.
Boom, that's it. I'm telling you, like if I focus on one thing, I could just conquer it. And it's funny, people were like, Lauren, she never studies, right? I'm like, dude, I could just study like the night before, like read it very quickly, memorize it. And I take the test and pass. And she's like, she was in the library, like walking around, getting Starbucks. And I was like, then I go by myself. I used to do this in college. I would go off somewhere by myself in a very quiet place, just focus for a straight solid 2 hours. And then I would ace the test.
Yeah.
And people are like, how'd you do that? I'm like, I just had to focus.
So maybe you don't have OCD. Maybe you're a genius.
I mean, I wish I could say I'm a genius. That's so funny. No, I wish I could say I'm a genius, but I just think like, hey, I have a skill set that I need to learn how to use it for good instead of using it against me.
Yes.
So that's funny. We could say I'm a genius for now. I'm just kidding.
What does your therapist or a doctor tell you?
My doctor, they say I'm a special person and that I could do great things if I learn to like not fall so deep into my mind and just focus in the present instead of doing all my OCD thoughts and putting all my energy into satisfying the OCD. It's like a monster. If I satisfy the monster, it's not going to help anyone. But if I just be myself and use the energy towards like helping myself and not putting it towards, the monster, I could do crazy things. I sound crazy just saying that, but like, I swear to you, I already know I could do it. I just need to focus.
For sure. It's all about focus.
It really is though. And that's why I got into film because I believe my story could help people. And I always wanted to write a show about OCD and use it as like a character. And I always wanted to help people with it and be like, hey, like, come on, like live your best life and don't be sad that you have this, like use it for good. So it really inspired me.
Do you get down on yourself at times about it?
Yes, all the time. Cause I always think like, dang, like, why do I have to deal with this? Like, why? Like, you know what I mean? Like I would do anything not to have it. And now I realize, hey, I think it helps me and made me who I am. So instead of questioning why, I think, hey, I was giving it as a purpose. I honestly think it was a purpose in my life and I could help others.
Is it draining at times?
All the time. Like I told people, I feel like I'm doing an intricate math problem 24/7. And you know how sometimes it's like you have to give up on a math problem if it's too hard?
You just don't give up.
I don't give up. I just feel like that's what's going on 24/7.
So you can get stuck in a situation for a while.
Yes.
Any type of situation.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. Like people don't know. So I think there's really strong people out there because they could put on like they're strong, but when they hide it and don't tell anyone about it, I think that's crazy amount of strength right there because you have to deal with it. Yeah.
So for people listening, dealing with mental health, do you believe it's more of a gift or a curse?
At first, it may seem like a curse, but once you conquer it, I think it's a gift. So people who have it, instead of being down on yourself, I literally had major depressive disorder because of OCD. And then I realized afterwards that, hey, why am I being sad about this? Like I could use it because it gives me an abnormal amount of energy. Like I used to get up so early just because I felt the need to be productive. And if I focus, I could do so much in one day. Like I literally drove to San Francisco in like one day and back and just got a cup of coffee.
Just for
fun. I did it. I just drove from LA to San Francisco, got a cup of coffee and back.
Did you like stop off and look at any views?
I did. I swear to God, I did not. This happened during the beginning of the pandemic. So they say a lot of mental illness cases went up, which it's true.
Okay.
I felt like I had no routine. So I was like, I need to go do something. I got up, drove to San Francisco, got a cup of coffee because it was a pandemic. So you couldn't like linger around. And I drove back to LA and I was like feeling like the next day I could do it again.
You did all that in one day?
Yes.
How long was that? Like 15 hours?
It was a long trip. So it was probably like, around 8 hours to get there. And then, I drove back. And it was like the whole day. It was a whole day thing, but I was up for it.
Do you want to represent the coffee spot you went to?
I honestly don't even remember the name. I just found the nearest coffee shop next to.
I thought there was like a special type of coffee you like.
Well, I mean, I just I don't even think I'm supposed to drink coffee. In fact, actually, I'm not because I'm crazy. But I love it. I love coffee. It makes me I'm already really hyped waking up. So if I drink coffee, it's like this girl is off the walls. Like she's everywhere. So it's kind of funny actually. But hey, that's me.
Are you on any medications right now? Or?
I am. I'm on 40 milligrams of Paxil, actually.
What's that? Do it just relax you kind of like
It's supposed to relax me. So the funny part is the side effect is supposed to make you sleepy. So it's funny because I could fall asleep whenever. Like if I really wanted to, I could sit on this couch and fall asleep. And
anytime,
I swear to you, I just could fall asleep. And then I could wake up anytime too. So
is that because of the medication?
I think it's the medication because I feel tired, but with my OCD, I feel energized at the same time.
I see.
So I could either be super hyped no matter what time it is, or I could be super tired depending on what I choose to.
So you don't believe if you just change your routine to let's say instead of going to work and coming home and cleaning and whatever you do in your routine, What about exercising, going out for a walk?
What do you mean? Do I make time for it?
No, can you change up your schedule?
I mean, yes, I can change up my schedule, but it will throw me off. I like to have a routine. So if I do a routine, I feel like I could nail it perfectly each time.
What happens if you change up your routine? For example,
it would just throw me off. I would feel like something's off and I would have to learn how to adapt. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather just stick to a routine.
Gotcha. Yeah. My friend, we go out to dinner and they go to that spot for 2 months every day. Same food, same time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's other people have OCD too and they don't know. It's the different spectrum of it. And I obviously had the higher spectrum where it affected my daily life, but now I'm learning to deal with it.
Do you feel like people don't want to be around you because of that?
I mean, I know for a fact, I always tell people, I'm they either say if I walk the room, they're all either yay, Lauren's here. Or they're oh shoot, Lauren's here, because I'm a very strong force of energy, very strong. I definitely come off as either really aggressive or chill. So I think it depends on the person and how they deal with my energy. So it's kind of funny though. It's really funny because I know people either love it or they're just wow, this is you need to be ready for this. So it's actually comedic, no way.
So what's your next project that you're working on with work and stuff?
So this is the funny part too. So with I don't think it's my OCD, or it might be, but I kind of just been nonstop working since I graduated college.
Okay.
So I've been hopping onto a new project depending on what I get. It's funny because I will end on the Friday and start the next, I'll have the weekend and start that Monday on the next project. I have not had a break for I think 3 years now.
Really?
Yeah, it's been crazy. So it's good because I'm building my IMDb. So I've just been hopping on different shows and I kind of just go with the same crew.
Are you working post-production? Are you acting?
I do post-production. So I'm a coordinator. I want to do eventually post-producing.
Okay.
So I'm kind of just, climbing the ladder, which is, so fun. Just kidding. But yeah, I've been doing that and just learning everything. And I started off as a PA, which is funny because I always felt like the underdog, even living with OCD. Of course.
Yeah.
So it kind of adds to my story, the fact Lolo Pooch, that's what they call me. I was the underdog and I'm still building myself
Yeah.
So I think OCD kind of helped me to be ready for this career.
Yeah. And I realize with you, you're also very blunt. Like most people that have OCD are very, I personally don't know. I would believe shy.
Right.
Or they don't want to. But I realize with you, you're like very hustle, like work. Like,
right.
I don't care who you are. I'm gonna message you. And what do you do?
That. I will message.
Who are you?
Exactly. I'll be like, here's the thing. I came to a point because I was, unfortunately, I hate to say this, I was suicidal. And instead of using my OCD as like ruining my life, I came to a point I was like, hey, if I'm blunt about it, I think I could help people because I'm not afraid to talk about it now. I used to be so embarrassed. I would not talk about it. I would hide my energy and I would just keep everything inside myself. And now I'm like, all right, I could talk for hours. Obviously I use it for like, hey, I have so much energy and I'm going to help people because I think it's a gift. And I think with my personality, I could help people who suffer. And like, I know a lot of people who are hospitalized from it. And unfortunately they are suicidal, which I lived, but hey, now I rather just be open and be like, hey, you're not alone. Like, hey, Lauren's lived it. So yeah.
Well, that's amazing that you're able to just get that and turn it around and switch.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I mean, that's why I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna be sad about it. I'm gonna be happy and be like, you know what, you could inspire others who suffered from it. And yeah, it's crazy because I've heard stories with people who have OCD and they had to, quit school and be put into like a rehab, like it's sad.
And so OCD also brings on depression.
It does. And that's what happens to me. I got major depressive disorder.
Anxiety.
After I was hurt.
So it's like
it leads to different things.
I see.
Yeah. And then I even got a tattoo that means breathe.
Okay.
Because I need to, be cool and breathe and like not fret over little things.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That's
it literally
amazing.
is insane, but that's why, hey, the mind is powerful. Use it. Use your mind.
Every single day.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you would like to tell the viewers or anyone listening?
I just want to say, stay strong. If you're suffering from anything, just know that you're not alone. Like there's people who want to help you. Don't feel like you're an outcast and know that, hey, you could use it for good. So
do you have any platforms that you would like to say so people, if they want to reach out to you or just look you up and check it out? I
mean, yeah, you guys could follow me on Instagram, Lolo Pooch. Add me on LinkedIn. I'm all over there putting out inspirational quotes. Lauren Pulciano is my, real name. And yeah, that's my main thing. And my IMDb, Lauren Pulciano, and you can see the projects I worked on and I hope to keep building it. And here's to a good life.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming out. I really, really appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a good day.
Thank you for listening to The Outlet.